This story is a fictional retelling based on real events. All names, locations, and identifying details have been altered to protect the privacy of those involved in the actual case, while preserving the emotional essence and core mystery. Rain pattered against the corrugated metal roof of the old storage shed as Marcus Jenkins adjusted his hard hat and shined his flashlight into the gloom. The foreclosure cleanup crew had been clearing out this forgotten property on the outskirts of Riverdale since dawn. "Hey, boss!" called Darnell from the back corner. "Got something weird over here." Marcus sloshed through puddles on the uneven concrete floor. The abandoned rental property had been sitting vacant for nearly 6 years, caught in legal limbo after the previous owner's death. "What have you got?" Marcus asked, training his beam where Darnell pointed. "Some kind of trunk. Almost missed it behind that refrigerator." The wooden chest was water-damaged, its brass hinges green with corrosion. Marcus knelt down, using his pry bar to work the warped lid open. The smell hit them first, musty paper and mildew. Darnell held the flashlight steady as Marcus carefully lifted aside layers of mouldy fabric. His gloved hands touched something solid, a notebook with a faded cartoon cat sticker on its red and white cover. "Just some kid's school stuff," Marcus said, flipping it open. He froze, staring at the inside cover. "What is it?" Darnell asked. Marcus looked up, his face ashen. "Call the sheriff, right now." The name, written in careful, childish letters on the inside cover, read Lily Bennett. 5 years earlier, the county had been consumed by the search for a 9-year-old girl who vanished from her bedroom in the middle of a stormy night. Her case had never been solved. Marcus knew the story. Everyone in Pinewood County did. Detective Eleanor Reese hadn't expected the call. After 12 years on the force and 5 as lead detective, she'd thought she'd seen everything Pinewood County had to offer. But when dispatch patched through the construction foreman's trembling voice, she felt a chill that had nothing to do with the February cold. The Bennett case had been her first major assignment when she made detective. It was also her first failure, the one that still woke her in the middle of the night. The little girl who walked away into darkness and vanished without a trace. Until today. Eleanor ducked under the police tape and entered the storage shed. The scene was already being processed, floodlights illuminating what the daylight couldn't. She approached the wooden chest, now surrounded by evidence markers. Officer Jennings was photographing each item as it was catalogued. "Detective, walk me through it," she said, pulling on nitrile gloves. "Construction crew found it about 2 hours ago. The chest contains a school notebook confirmed to belong to Lily Bennett. Also recovered 6 sheets of notebook paper with drawings, fragments of what appears to be a child's winter jacket, navy blue. And this." He handed her an evidence bag containing a small plastic astronaut toy. Eleanor's breath caught. Lily had been obsessed with space. Her room had been decorated with stars and planets. "Who owns this property now?" Eleanor asked. "California Investment Company. Bought it 6 months ago in a bank foreclosure. Before that, it was owned by First National after they repossessed it from the previous owner, a Gerald Mackey." Eleanor's head snapped up. "Mackey? The high school janitor?" "Same one. Left town about 4 years ago." Eleanor stared at the chest, her mind racing. Mackey had been questioned during the initial investigation. He'd lived less than 2 miles from the Bennett home, had no alibi for the night of the disappearance, but there had been no evidence connecting him to Lily, nothing to justify a search warrant for his property. Now 5 years later, they finally had their connection. 5 years earlier, Daniel Bennett had checked his daughter's room at 6:45 a.m. Lily should have been up by then, getting ready for school. He knocked on her bedroom door. "Lilybug? Time to get up, sweetheart." No answer. He knocked again, then opened the door. The room was empty. The bed was made, unusual for Lily. Her favorite stuffed animal was missing from its pillow. More concerning, her school backpack was gone. "Maureen," he called out, trying to keep his voice steady. "Is Lily with you?" His wife appeared in the hallway, toothbrush in hand. "No. Isn't she in her room?" The initial confusion quickly escalated to panic as they searched their modest single-story home. Their golden retriever, Scout, showed no signs of having barked during the night. "I'm calling the police," Maureen said, her voice tight with fear. By nightfall, they had their first lead. A truck driver reported seeing a small girl walking alone along County Highway 5 around 3:30 a.m., wearing what looked like white clothing. He hadn't stopped. He'd assumed she was with someone nearby. Later, a second witness came forward, a night shift nurse driving home from the hospital. She too had seen a small figure in white along Highway 5 around 4:00 a.m. The image haunted Eleanor, a 9-year-old girl alone on a dark highway in the cold February rain. What had drawn her out into the night? Where was she going? Because Eleanor was certain of one thing. Lily Bennett hadn't simply run away. Someone had lured her out of that house. Someone had been waiting. 1 week after the disappearance, Eleanor sat at the Bennett kitchen table, reviewing her notes. The media attention had brought in dozens of tips, but most led nowhere. "We need to consider that Lily might have left voluntarily," Eleanor said carefully, watching the parents' reactions. Daniel's face hardened. "No, absolutely not." "She was happy," Maureen insisted. "She wouldn't just walk out in the middle of the night. She was afraid of the dark. She slept with a nightlight." Eleanor nodded. "I understand. But children sometimes do unpredictable things. Was there anything bothering her? Any changes in behavior?" The parents exchanged a glance. "What?" Eleanor pressed. "Something occurred to you just now." Daniel sighed. "It's probably nothing. But Lily did mention something about a secret friend a couple of weeks ago." Eleanor's pen hovered over her notepad. What kind of secret friend? "We thought it was an imaginary friend," Maureen explained. "She's had them before. She said this one was a grown-up who knew all about space." "A grown-up," Eleanor repeated, a cold feeling settling in her stomach. "Did she say anything else about this person?" Daniel shook his head. "Just that they had special space books to show her." The list of adults Lily had regular contact with grew long. She was a popular, sociable child. But one name stood out to Eleanor: Gerald Mackey, the school janitor known for giving candy to students and taking a special interest in their art projects. School staff revealed that Mackey had commented multiple times on Lily's space drawings, even gifting her a book of NASA photographs found in the Lost and Found. When Eleanor questioned him at his home, Mackey was cooperative but nervous. He admitted giving Lily the book, but denied any inappropriate contact. He lived alone, had no alibi for the night of the disappearance. A preliminary background check showed a clean record. Without evidence linking him to the disappearance, Eleanor couldn't obtain a search warrant for his property. But her instincts screamed that something wasn't right. Then, almost exactly a year after Lily vanished, they finally found something. A highway maintenance crew clearing brush along State Road. 16, nearly 30 miles from where Lily was last seen, discovered a purple backpack wrapped in a black garbage bag, partially buried beneath fallen leaves. Inside, school books with Lily Bennett's name, a pencil case full of space-themed erasers, and a small black lunchbox decorated with planets. The discovery confirmed what Eleanor had feared from the beginning. Lily hadn't run away. Someone had taken her and gone to considerable lengths to hide the evidence. Gerald Mackey left town suddenly, citing a family emergency. By the time Eleanor followed up, his rental house had been emptied, and he'd left no forwarding address. For the Bennetts, life settled into a new, painful normal. But in their home, Lily's room remained untouched, a shrine to the little girl who walked into the night and vanished. Now, 5 years later, the forensics team worked methodically, processing the wooden chest and its contents. By morning, they had preliminary results. The notebook was definitively Lily's, and most significantly, degraded but viable DNA had been recovered from both the chest and the notebook. Eleanor stood in the evidence room examining photographs of the storage shed. Sheriff Wilkins handed her a file. Background on the property. Gerald Mackey bought it 15 years ago, lived there until he skipped town 4 years back. And we never searched it during the initial investigation, Eleanor said, the old frustration rising. No probable cause, Wilkins reminded her. Judge wouldn't sign off. Eleanor nodded absently, still studying the photos. Something nagged at her, the location of the storage shed in relation to the main house. It sat at the back of the property, partially obscured by overgrown bushes. From the road, you wouldn't know it was there. "I want to talk to the Bennetts," she said. "They should hear about this from me, not the news." Daniel Bennett had aged a decade in the 5 years since his daughter's disappearance. He sat perfectly still as Eleanor explained what they'd found, Maureen clutching his hand so tightly her knuckles were white. "You're saying she was there?" Maureen finally asked. "In that man's property?" "We don't know that for certain," Eleanor said carefully. "We know her belongings were there. The forensic evidence will tell us more." "Gerald Mackey," Daniel said, the name like it tasted bitter. "The janitor, you questioned him?" Eleanor nodded. "Yes. He didn't raise major red flags at the time. His record was clean." "But you suspected him?" Daniel pressed. "I had concerns," Eleanor admitted. "But we didn't have enough for a warrant." Jack, now 15, appeared in the doorway, tall and lanky with the same unruly curls his sister had once had. "You found something of Lily's?" he asked directly. Eleanor nodded. "Yes, a notebook and some other items." "Can I see them?" Eleanor showed Jack the processed evidence photos on her tablet. He studied them with intense concentration. "That's her Garfield sticker," he said, pointing to the notebook cover. "I gave it to her for her birthday." He swiped to the next photo, the drawings. "Those are planets. She was making a solar system mobile for science class." He continued through the photos until he reached the small astronaut toy. He froze. "Jack," Maureen prompted. "This wasn't Lily's," he said, looking up at Eleanor. "This was mine." Eleanor felt her pulse quicken. "Are you sure?" "Positive. It was my lucky astronaut. I kept it in my pencil box. I looked for it for weeks after she disappeared." Daniel moved closer. "What are you saying, son?" Jack looked at his father. "I think Lily took it the night she left. She used to borrow my things sometimes, said they were good luck." Eleanor's mind raced with the implications. If Lily had taken her brother's toy, a last-minute decision before leaving, it suggested she had left home with a specific plan or destination in mind, not a random nighttime wandering. Jack, did Lily ever mention anyone special at school? Someone she might have wanted to impress or please? Jack thought for a moment. "She talked about Mr. Mackey sometimes, said he knew cool stuff about space that wasn't in the books. Once she showed me a picture of Jupiter he printed for her, a special one from a NASA website." Eleanor exchanged glances with Daniel and Maureen. This was new information, a concrete connection between Lily and Mackey beyond casual school interaction. "Why didn't you mention this before?" Daniel asked, his voice tight. Jack shrugged, suddenly looking very young. I don't know. No one asked about Jupiter Pictures. And after a while, it hurt too much to talk about Lily. As Eleanor prepared to leave, Daniel followed her to the door. "Find him," he said quietly, intensity burning in his eyes. "Find Mackie, whatever it takes." Eleanor nodded. "We will, I promise." The news of the discovery spread quickly through Pinewood County. Eleanor set up a task force dedicated to locating Gerald Mackie. They traced his movements after leaving Pinewood, an apartment in Tennessee for 8 months, then a trailer park in Arizona for just over a year. After that, the trail went cold. "He's either dead or living off the grid," said Detective Carlos Ramirez, who joined the department 3 years after Lily's disappearance. Eleanor rubbed her tired eyes. "Check missing persons cases in areas where Mackie lived. Look for similar patterns. Children around Lily's age, similar physical description." "You think he's done this before or since?" "People like this rarely stop at one," Eleanor said grimly. They worked late into the night, their investigation taking on new urgency. Eleanor's phone rang just after midnight, the forensics lab. "We got a hit on the DNA from the chest," the technician reported. "It's not in CODIS, but it's a familial match to a sample in the system." Eleanor sat up straighter. "Whose sample?" "Gerald Mackie's brother, Martin Mackie. He's in the system for a DUI from 2010. This was it, the confirmation they needed. The DNA in the chest belonged to Gerald Mackie. He had been involved in Lily's disappearance. Eleanor couldn't shake the feeling that Mackie was closer than they thought. The discovery of the chest after all these years seemed too convenient, too much like a taunt. She returned to the storage shed. In the daylight, she could see how isolated it was, surrounded by overgrown vegetation, invisible from the road. Something caught her eye, a glint of metal in the dirt near the shed's foundation. She knelt down, using a pen to carefully brush away loose soil. A key! Old and tarnished, but not rusted. It hadn't been there long. Eleanor bagged it carefully, then continued examining the area. Near a stand of scrubby pine trees, she noticed something else, a small cairn of rocks deliberately placed. She photographed it, then carefully removed the stones one by one. Buried beneath them was a small metal box. Inside, a folded piece of paper. Eleanor opened it with gloved hands. Written in block letters, "Look closer at the night." Eleanor frowned. The night. Was it a misspelling of night, referring to the night Lily disappeared, or something else entirely? An idea struck her. She pulled up the county property records on her laptop, searching not for Mackie, but for night. Then she spotted it. An abandoned hunting cabin registered to a Walter Knight, who died 3 years ago. The property had reverted to the county for unpaid taxes. It sat on 50 acres of woodland, approximately 12 miles from the Bennett home, and 7 miles from where Lily had last been seen, walking along Highway 5. Eleanor's pulse quickened. Could this be what the note meant? 20 minutes later, she pulled on to the overgrown dirt track that led to Knight's hunting cabin. The place looked abandoned, windows boarded up. But as Eleanor approached, she noticed fresh tire tracks in the muddy drive. Someone had been here recently. Drawing her weapon, she approached cautiously. The back door's padlock appeared intact, but when she touched it, it fell open. The hasp had been carefully cut and then replaced to look secure. Eleanor called for backup, giving her location and situation. Then, weapon ready, she pushed the door open. The cabin was small, one main room with a kitchenette, a bathroom, and a storage closet. She could see areas that had been recently disturbed, a chair pulled out, a clear space on the small table. She approached the closet door, which was closed but not latched. Using her elbow, she pushed it open, weapon raised. The closet was empty except for a folding chair and a small battery-powered lamp. But the wall behind the chair drew her attention. Pinned to it were dozens of newspaper clippings about Lily's case, photographs of the search parties, and a large map of Pinewood County with locations marked in red. Eleanor photographed everything. As she examined the clippings, she noticed writing in the margins, notes, questions, observations. The handwriting matched the block letters from the note in the metal box. This wasn't Mackey's work. This was someone else, someone who had been following the case, someone who knew what had happened to Lily. A floorboard creaked behind her. Eleanor spun around, weapon raised. An older man stood in the cabin doorway, hands raised. "Don't shoot," he said hoarsely. "On your knees, hands behind your head," Eleanor commanded. He complied, slowly. "You're the detective," he said. "The one who never gave up on the Bennett girl." "Who are you?" Eleanor demanded. "Martin Mackey, Gerald's brother." The familial DNA match. "Where is Gerald?" Martin's weathered face crumpled. "Dead. 3 years now, cancer." "Why should I believe you?" "Because I'm the one who left you the clues, the key, the note. I want you to know what happened to that little girl." His voice broke. "I want her parents to know." Eleanor heard sirens in the distance. Backup arriving. "Why now? After 5 years?" Martin Mackey looked up at her, his eyes filled with guilt and resolve. "Because I made a promise to my brother, and now I'm finally breaking it." The interrogation room at the Pinewood County Sheriff's Department was stark and functional. Martin Mackey sat hunched at the table, his lined face grave under the fluorescent lights. "Start from the beginning," Eleanor said. "Everything you know about Lily Bennett." Martin's hands trembled slightly. "I never met her. I only know what Gerald told me." "And what did he tell you?" "It was about a year after she disappeared. Gerald called me out of the blue. We weren't close, hadn't talked in maybe 2 years. He said he was in trouble, needed money." "Where did you meet?" "That cabin. It belonged to our Uncle Walt. Gerald knew it would be empty. Walt was in a nursing home by then." "Did he tell you what he'd done?" Martin nodded, his eyes downcast. "Not at first. I refused to help him without knowing. That's when he told me about the girl." Eleanor leaned forward. "What exactly did he say?" "He said she was special. Smart. Interested in space, like he was. He'd been giving her books, talking to her after school. He wanted to show her his telescope at the house." Martin's voice faltered. "He said he sent her a note through another student, asking her to meet him late at night so they could see a meteor shower, told her not to tell her parents because they wouldn't understand." Eleanor felt cold fury building inside her. Mackey had lured Lily out with the promise of something she loved, stars, space, a cosmic event. He'd exploited her trust, her curiosity. What happened when she came to his house? Martin shook his head. He said it was an accident. She got scared, tried to run, hit her head on the corner of the table. He panicked. Did he say if she was alive? Did he get her medical help? No. The word hung in the air. He said she died right there. He kept saying it wasn't supposed to happen, that he just wanted to show her the stars. What did he do afterward? He wrapped her in a blanket, put her in his car, drove to the hunting cabin. That's where he buried her. Martin's voice broke. Near the big oak tree behind the cabin, he marked it with a pile of rocks. Why didn't you come forward then? Eleanor demanded. Martin's face contorted with shame. I was scared. And I made a promise to Gerald when he was dying, said I'd never tell. He looked up, eyes wet. But I couldn't live with it anymore. Not after I saw that little shrine the Bennets put up on Lily's birthday last month. The search team assembled at Knight's hunting cabin just as dawn broke. Martin Mackey, handcuffed and escorted by 2 deputies, directed them to a clearing behind the cabin. Near a massive oak tree, a small cairn of stones sat innocuously among the underbrush. "There," he said, his voice barely audible. "Under those rocks." The forensic team worked methodically, photographing the scene before carefully removing the stones. Ground-penetrating radar confirmed a disturbance approximately 3 feet down. Just before noon, one of the forensic technicians called out softly, "We've got something." Eleanor approached as they carefully brushed dirt away from a dark blue fabric, the same color as the jacket fragments found in the chest. By mid-afternoon, they had recovered the remains of a child wrapped in what was once a blue blanket. A small silver charm bracelet with a rocket ship pendant was found among the remains. Maureen Bennett had described it in her initial statements. Eleanor stepped away from the scene, emotions threatening to overwhelm her. After 5 years of searching, of promising the Bennets she would find their daughter, here was the answer no one had wanted. There was no gentle way to deliver such news. Eleanor told the Bennets directly, her voice steady despite the ache in her chest. Lily had been found. Gerald Mackey had lured her from her home with the promise of a meteor shower. Her death appeared to have been unplanned, an accident followed by panic and terrible decisions. Maureen collapsed against Daniel, her body racked with sobs. Daniel stared straight ahead, tears streaming silently down his face. Jack moved to sit between his parents, the 3 of them holding each other in their grief. "We'll need official identification," Eleanor said gently. "But the bracelet matches the one you described." "What happens now?" Daniel asked, his voice hollow. "We'll complete the recovery and forensic examination. Once that's done, you'll be able to make arrangements. Gerald Mackey is deceased, but his brother will be prosecuted for concealing evidence." "Did she suffer?" Maureen asked suddenly, her red-rimmed eyes meeting Eleanor's. Eleanor chose her words carefully. "Based on what we know, it appears her death was quick, a head injury that would have rendered her unconscious almost immediately." "She was coming home," Jack said suddenly. All eyes turned to him. "The astronaut toy, she took it for good luck, but she was planning to come right back. That's why she didn't pack much, why she made her bed. She thought she'd be back before morning." Eleanor nodded, throat tight. "That seems likely, yes." Maureen reached for Eleanor's hand. "Thank you," she whispered, "for never giving up on her, for bringing her home to us." Eleanor squeezed her hand gently. "I made you a promise." 3 days later, the medical examiner confirmed what Martin Mackey had claimed. Lily Bennett had died from a blunt force trauma to the head, consistent with a fall against a hard edge. She had been wearing the white outfit witnesses had reported seeing along Highway 5. The day before Lily's funeral, Eleanor visited the site where she had been found. The forensic team had finished their work, the excavation filled in. Someone, likely Daniel Bennett, had placed a small stone angel at the base of the oak tree. Eleanor knelt beside it, placing a small bunch of daisies she'd picked along the roadside. As she stood to leave, she noticed something carved into the oak's trunk, weathered but still visible. The rough outline of a star. Had Mackey carved it as a marker? Or had it been there all along, a cosmic coincidence that now served as Lily's final monument? After the funeral service, as the mourners dispersed, Jack Bennett approached Eleanor. "Detective Reese, I found something in Lily's notebook." He handed her a folded piece of paper, a child's drawing of planets, stars, and a telescope. In the corner, written in a child's careful printing, "Secret Midnight Sky Party with Mr. M. Don't tell." Lily drew this before she disappeared, didn't she? She was planning to meet him. Eleanor studied the drawing. It looks that way, yes. Then it wasn't random. He had been planning it. The implication was clear. Perhaps Gerald Mackey's story, as relayed by his brother, wasn't entirely truthful. Perhaps Lily's death hadn't been an accident, but the culmination of a carefully executed plan. When confronted with the drawing, Martin Mackey's weathered face blanched. "I told you what Gerald told me," he insisted. "That it was an accident." "This drawing suggests premeditation," Eleanor pressed. "Did your brother ever mention other children?" A long silence stretched between them. Finally, Martin spoke, his voice barely audible. "There was a girl before. In Tennessee, before Gerald moved here. Something happened. He never told me what exactly. That's why he left so suddenly, came to Pinewood." Eleanor felt a familiar cold dread. What was her name? "I don't know. He just said there had been trouble, that he needed a fresh start." A more thorough search of Mackey's property yielded another discovery. Beneath the shed floor, wrapped in plastic sheeting, was a small metal lockbox. Inside, a collection of children's trinkets, a child's diary with the name Melissa T. written inside, and a series of Polaroid photographs showing young girls, including Lily, at playgrounds, walking to school, sitting in classrooms. Gerald Mackey hadn't stumbled into an opportunity with Lily. He had been a calculating predator with a pattern of behavior. And now they had a name, Melissa T., that might lead them to another victim. Within days, they had a match. Melissa Torres, aged 10, had disappeared from her neighborhood in Bristol, Tennessee in 1994, shortly before Gerald Mackey relocated to Pinewood County. Her case had never been solved. Eleanor arranged to fly to Florida to interview the Torres family. Before leaving, she visited the Bennetts to update them. "So Lily wasn't his first victim," Maureen said when Eleanor finished. "It appears not. The evidence suggests Mackey had a pattern of targeting young girls. If the police in Tennessee had caught him, then—" Daniel began. "Daniel, don't," Maureen said softly. "We can't think like that." "I wanted you to hear this from me," Eleanor said. "Would you be willing to speak with the Torres family? They've been waiting for answers even longer than you have." The Bennetts exchanged a look. "Yes," Maureen said finally. "We'd like to help them, if we can. We know what it's like to live with not knowing." As Eleanor prepared to leave, Daniel walked her to the door. "Detective Reese," he said quietly, "find Melissa. Bring her home to her family, like you did for Lily." Eleanor nodded solemnly. "I will." It was another promise, one she intended to keep. But as she drove away, she wondered how many other families were out there, waiting for answers that might never come. The weight of it was almost unbearable. But then she remembered the small stone angel at the base of the oak tree, the carved star in its trunk. Lily had been found. Her family could now begin to heal. And perhaps the Torres family would soon find the same closure. It wasn't justice. Nothing could truly be justice when a child's life was stolen. But it was truth. And sometimes truth was all that remained when everything else was lost. The small red and white notebook sat on Eleanor's desk. She paged through Lily's schoolwork, multiplication tables, spelling lists, science notes about the solar system. On the final page, a drawing of stars, planets, and a small figure looking through a telescope. Below it, in the careful printing of a 9-year-old. "When I grow up, I want to be an astronaut and see the stars up close. Eleanor closed the notebook gently. Lily Bennett would never grow up to be an astronaut. She would never see the stars up close, but perhaps, wherever she was now, she was among them, a bright point of light in the darkness, guiding those left behind toward truth, toward healing. Tomorrow, Eleanor would fly to Florida to begin the search for Melissa Torres. Another promise to keep, another child to bring home. Outside her window, night was falling over Pinewood County. The first stars were becoming visible in the deepening blue. Eleanor thought of Jack Bennett's words at the funeral. Lily had taken his lucky astronaut toy, planning to return before morning. She hadn't made it home that night. But 5 years later, she had finally returned to her family, allowing them to say the goodbye they had been denied. The stars continued to emerge, countless points of light in the vast darkness. Eleanor gathered her files, tucked Lily's notebook into her bag, and prepared to continue the search for those still missing, the lost stars waiting to be found. This story was a fictional retelling inspired by a real-life case. If you found it powerful, please like, share, and subscribe for more true crime-inspired stories.